My husband thought my silence was weakness, but he did not know it was the sound of me digging his grave. Most people look at me and see a mouse. I am the kind of woman who apologizes when someone else bumps into me at the grocery store. I am the wife who irons her husband's shirts with perfect creases and has a hot dinner on the table at 6 o'clock sharp every single evening. I never raise my voice. I never complain when he comes home late smelling like cheap perfume and guilt. For 10 years I played the part of the good little wife to Mark. I was the furniture in his life. Necessary but unnoticed. Mark was a big shot. Or at least he pretended to be. He was the CEO of a tech startup that was always on the verge of the next big thing. He drove a leased Porsche and wore suits that cost more than my first car. He loved to talk about his vision and his hustle. He loved to tell me that I would not understand the complexities of high-level business. He would pat me on the head like a dog and tell me to worry about the laundry while he worried about the millions. But Mark forgot one thing. I used to be an accountant before I became his housewife. I know numbers. And numbers do not lie. People lie. Husbands lie. But the math always tells the truth. It started on a Tuesday. I remember the day because it was raining hard and the house felt cold no matter how high I turned up the heat. I went to the wall safe in the master bedroom closet. It was hidden behind a painting of a sailboat that Mark bought at an auction to look rich. I rarely opened that safe. Inside was the only thing that truly mattered to me. My grandmother's jewelry. It was an antique collection of heavy gold necklaces, ruby rings, and solid gold bangles from the old country. It was my inheritance. My safety net. My grandmother told me before she passed that a woman must always have her own gold, because you never know when the world will turn against you. I spun the dial. I knew the combination by heart. It was the date of our wedding. A day I used to think was the happiest of my life, but now looking back it feels like the day I signed a contract with the devil. The heavy door clicked open. I reached inside for the velvet box. My heart stopped. My hand grasped nothing but cold steel. The shelf was empty. I froze. I blinked hard thinking maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me in the dim light. I felt around the corners. Nothing. The box was gone. The gold was gone. My first instinct was panic. I thought we had been robbed. I grabbed my phone to call 911. But then I stopped. I looked at the other shelf in the safe. Mark's stack of cash was still there. His expensive watches were still there. A robber would not take a box of old lady's jewelry and leave $5,000 in cash and 3 Rolexes. This was personal. I felt a sickness rising in my throat. I walked to the window and watched the rain hit the glass. Mark had been acting strange lately. He was jumpy. He was sweating even when the AC was blasting. And the phone calls. Late-night whispers in the bathroom. Text messages he shielded from my view. I sat on the edge of the bed and I waited. I did not scream. I did not cry. I just waited for him to come home. When Mark walked in the door at 8 o'clock he looked like a wreck. His tie was loose and his eyes were wild. He poured himself a drink before he even said hello. "Hey babe," he said without looking at me. "Rough day." "Do not ask." I stood in the doorway of the kitchen. I watched him down the scotch. "Mark," I said softly. "I went to the safe today." He froze. The glass stopped halfway to his mouth. For a split second I saw the terror in his eyes. Then he covered it up with that arrogant smirk I had grown to hate. "Oh yeah," he said. "I meant to tell you." I moved it. "Moved it?" I asked. My voice was steady. Even I was surprised by how calm I sounded. "Yeah," he said, turning his back to me to pour another drink. "I took it to get cleaned and appraised. The insurance company needed an update or something. Boring stuff. You do not need to worry your pretty little head about it." He was lying. I knew it in my bones. Mark never did anything helpful like getting jewelry cleaned. "Okay," I said. "When will it be back?" "Soon," he said, waving his hand dismissively. "Couple weeks." "Is dinner ready?" "I am starving." I served him his roast chicken. I watched him eat. I watched him chew and swallow and wipe his mouth with the napkin I had washed and folded. He acted like nothing was wrong. He acted like he had not just stolen the last piece of my family history. The next day I went to work. Not a real job, but my job of finding out the truth. I drove to his office building, but I did not go in. I parked across the street and I watched. I saw him come out at lunch. He was not alone. She was young. Maybe 22. She had long blonde hair and wore a skirt that was too short for a professional setting. She was his new assistant, Jessica. I had met her at the Christmas party. She had looked at me with pity then. Now I knew why. They walked close together. Too close. Mark was laughing. He looked carefree. They walked into a high-end jewelry store 2 blocks away. My stomach turned. I waited. 30 minutes later they came out. Jessica was beaming. She was holding up her hand admiring a ring on her finger. A massive diamond. I put the pieces together and the picture was ugly. Mark had stolen my grandmother's gold. He had sold it. And he had used the money to buy a diamond engagement ring for his mistress. He was funding his affair with my inheritance. I drove home in a daze. I felt like I was bleeding out, but there was no wound. I wanted to confront him. I wanted to scream and throw his clothes on the lawn and burn the house down. I wanted to tell him I knew everything. But then I remembered my grandmother's voice. Be smart, Sarah. Anger is a fire that burns you. Intelligence is a river that drowns your enemies. I needed to be the river. I went into his home office that afternoon while he was still at work. I needed proof. I needed to know how much he got for it. I rifled through his desk. Nothing. I checked his briefcase, which he had foolishly left behind. And there it was. Not a receipt for the jewelry sale, but a bank deposit slip. He had deposited $50,000 into a separate account I did not know about. And right next to it was a withdrawal slip for $20,000 for the jewelry store. He still had $30,000 sitting in that secret account. But then I found something else. A letter from a creditor. Mark's company was not just struggling. It was drowning. He was millions in debt. The board of directors was threatening to oust him if the stock price dropped any lower. He was desperate. I went to my laptop and I looked up his company ticker symbol. It was a disaster. The stock was trading at pennies. It was practically worthless. Everyone was selling. The market had lost faith in Mark. And that is when the idea hit me. It was crazy. It was risky. But it was the perfect revenge. Mark thought I was stupid. He thought I was broke. But he did not know about the savings bond my father had left me years ago. It had matured last week. I had never told Mark about it because I wanted to surprise him with a vacation for our anniversary. It was worth exactly $50,000. I looked at the screen. Mark's company had a total market cap that was laughably low because of the debt. If I used my $50,000 plus the $30,000 I could access if I cracked his password, I could buy a massive amount of shares. Wait. I looked closer at the deposit slip. It had the login info scribbled on the back. Mark was sloppy. He was so arrogant he thought nobody would ever check. I logged in. I transferred the remaining $30,000 of my gold money into my own private account. He would notice eventually. But not today. He was too busy with Jessica. So I had $80,000. At the current stock price of 10 cents a share, I could buy 800,000 shares. I did the math. Mark's company had 2 million shares outstanding. If I bought 800,000 shares, I would own 40% of the company. Mark only owned 20% because he had sold off most of his shares years ago to buy his Porsche and his fancy suits. If I bought these shares, I would be the majority shareholder. I would own him. I picked up the phone. I called a broker I knew from my old accounting days. Dave, I said. It is Sarah. I need you to do something for me. And you need to keep it quiet. Dave was skeptical. Sarah, he said. This company is a sinking ship. You are gonna lose everything. Why do you want to buy garbage stock? Because Dave, I said, staring at the picture of Mark and me on the desk. Sometimes you have to buy the garbage to take it out. I authorized the trade. I used every penny I had. My savings. My father's bond. And the money Mark had stolen from me. I put it all on red. For the next 2 months I lived a double life. By day I was the quiet, obedient wife. I cooked. I cleaned. I listened to Mark complain about his employees. By night I watched the stock market. I bought slowly so I would not spike the price. I used shell companies and different names so Mark would not see Sarah on the shareholder list. I was a ghost in the machine. Mark became more aggressive. He started staying out all night. He stopped wearing his wedding ring, claiming it was getting resized. He told me I was looking old and tired. You should go to the gym, Sarah, he said one morning while eating the eggs I made him. You are letting yourself go. Jessica goes to spin class every morning. She is in great shape. He did not even realize he had said her name. I just smiled. I'm sure she is, I said. The disrespect was constant. It was like he was trying to push me to leave so he would not have to be the bad guy. He wanted me to file for divorce. But I was not going anywhere. Not yet. I needed 51%. I was currently at 45. I sold my car. I told Mark it broke down and was not worth fixing. I started taking the bus. He laughed at me. Look at you, he sneered. Riding the bus like a peasant. You are embarrassing me, Sarah. I took the check from the car sale and I bought more shares. 48%. I pawned my expensive handbag collection he had bought me in the good years. 49%. I was so close. Then the hammer dropped. Mark came home early on a Friday. He was not alone. He had a man with him. A man in a cheap suit carrying a briefcase. Sarah, sit down, Mark said. He did not look at me. He looked at the wall. I sat on the sofa. This is my lawyer, Mark said. We are filing for divorce. The lawyer placed a stack of papers on the coffee table. I looked at them. They were thick. Mark started talking fast. Look, Sarah, it is not working. We want different things. I have met someone else. Someone who understands my lifestyle. Someone who can keep up with me. I stayed silent. I am going to be generous, Mark said, puffing out his chest. I will give you $10,000 to help you get settled. But I am keeping the house. I am keeping the accounts. And obviously I am keeping the company. $10,000. After 10 years. He was offering me crumbs. And he continued. And since you do not have any assets of your own, really it is a fair deal. I mean, you lost that jewelry your grandma gave you, right? So you have nothing to bring to the table. He was using the theft he committed against me. He was gaslighting me into thinking I had lost the gold. I looked at the lawyer. Does he know, I asked. Know what the lawyer asked, looking bored. Does he know that I know he stole my inheritance to buy his girlfriend a rock, I said calmly. The room went silent. Mark turned red. You are crazy, he shouted. You are delusional. This is exactly why I am leaving you. You are mentally unstable. Sign the papers, Sarah, the lawyer said. It is the best offer you are going to get. If we go to court, Mark will crush you. He has resources. You have nothing. I picked up the papers. I flipped through them. He wanted me to sign away my rights to the house. My rights to spousal support. Everything. I stood up. I am not signing these, I said. Mark laughed. It was a cruel barking sound. You want to fight me? You. Look at you, Sarah. You are weak. You have no money. You have no lawyer. You are going to lose. I will see you in court, Mark, I said. Get out, he screamed. Get out of my house. It is marital property, Mark, I said, walking to the door. I am staying at a hotel tonight. But I will see you on Monday. And Mark. He looked at me, his face twisted in rage. Make sure you wear your best suit, I said. You are gonna need it. I walked out into the cool night air. I felt lighter than I had in years. I checked my phone. My broker Dave had sent me a text message. Transaction complete. You just crossed the line. You own 51%. I smiled. I owned the majority share of his company. Technically, I was his boss. Technically, I owned the chair he sat in and the desk he stole money from. The weekend was a blur. I bought a new dress for court. It was black. Appropriate for a funeral. Because that is what Monday was going to be. The funeral of Mark's ego. Monday morning arrived with a gray sky. I walked into the courthouse. My heels clicked on the marble floor. I saw Mark down the hall. He was with Jessica. She was hanging on his arm wearing that diamond ring paid for with my grandmother's memories. She looked at me and smirked. Mark whispered something to her and they both laughed. They thought they were walking into a slaughter. They thought I was the lamb. We went into the courtroom. The judge was an older woman with glasses on the end of her nose. Mark's lawyer stood up first. Your Honor, my client is a successful businessman. His wife has no income and has contributed nothing to the marriage in years. We are asking for a quick dissolution. We are offering a settlement, but she refused. The judge looked at me. Do you have a lawyer, Mrs. Reynolds? No, Your Honor, I said, standing up. I represent myself. Mark snorted audibly. Very well, the judge said. Proceed. I walked to the front. I placed a single folder on the table. Your Honor, I said, my voice clear and strong. My husband claims I have contributed nothing. He claims I have no assets. He claims he is a successful businessman. I turned to look at Mark. He was checking his watch looking bored. But the truth is, I said, my husband has been funding his lifestyle by stealing from me. And his company, which he claims is successful, is actually bankrupt. Objection, Mark's lawyer shouted. Slander. I held up a document. This is a notarized affidavit from the bank showing the transfer of funds from my husband's account to a jewelry store. And here is the police report I filed this morning regarding the theft of $50,000 worth of antique gold. Mark sat up straight. His face went pale. But that is not why we are here, I continued. We are here to divide assets. And since my husband loves his company so much, I think we should talk about that. I pulled out the stock certificates. Over the last 2 months I have been purchasing shares of Reynolds Tech, I said. Mark frowned. What is she talking about? He whispered to his lawyer. I bought them when the price was low, I said. Because my husband ran the company into the ground. I turned the document around so the judge could see. As of Friday afternoon, I am the registered owner of 1,020,000 shares of Reynolds Tech, I said. The room went dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. That means, I continued, that I own 51% of the company. I am the majority shareholder. Mark stood up. That is a lie, he shouted. That is impossible. You do not have that kind of money. I used the money you stole from me, Mark, I said, looking him dead in the eye. And I used my own savings. I bought your company with your own betrayal. The judge looked at the papers. She looked at Mark. She looked at me. It appears to be in order, Mr. Reynolds, the judge said. She owns the company. Mark slumped back into his chair. He looked like he had been punched in the gut. Jessica pulled her arm away from him. She looked at him with disgust. She realized the money train had just derailed. But I was not done. Since I am the majority shareholder, I said, addressing the judge but looking at Mark, I would like to make a motion regarding the management of the company. I pulled out one last letter. I am calling for an emergency board meeting effective immediately, I said. And as the majority owner, my first act of business is to fire the CEO for gross misconduct and embezzlement. Mark gasps. You cannot do that, he wheezed. I built that company. You broke it, I said. And now I own it. I turned to the judge. Your Honor, since my husband is now unemployed and has no assets other than a minority stake in a company I control, I believe the division of assets should be reconsidered. I am willing to let him keep his clothes, but I am taking the house. Mark looked at his lawyer. Do something, he screamed. The lawyer closed his briefcase. There is nothing I can do, Mark. She owns you. I walked out of that courtroom and I did not look back. I could hear Mark shouting behind me, but it just sounded like noise. Meaningless noise. I walked past Jessica in the hallway. She was on her phone, probably calling an Uber. She looked at me with fear. I stopped. Nice ring, I said. She covered it with her other hand. You might want to sell it, I said. He is not going to be able to pay for the wedding. I walked out into the sunlight. The rain had stopped. The air smelled fresh. I was alone. I was divorced. But I was not broken. I took a deep breath. I had my gold back. Not in the form of necklaces and bangles, but in the form of power. My grandmother was right. A woman must always have her own gold. Sometimes that gold is metal. And sometimes it is the look on your ex-husband's face when he realizes he just lost everything to the woman he thought was nothing. I hailed a cab. Where to? The driver asked. The bank, I said. I have a deposit to make. Part 2 coming soon. I leaned back in the seat and watched the city pass by. My phone buzzed. It was a notification from the business news app. Reynolds Tech stock soars as new majority owner ousts CEO. I smiled. The market liked my move. The stock was already up 20%. I was richer than I had been an hour ago. Mark had underestimated me. He thought silence was empty. He did not know that silence is where you do your best thinking. I was just getting started. There were still loose ends to tie up. The mistress. The hidden accounts he thought I didn't know about. The house. I was going to take it all. Not because I was greedy, but because the bill for betrayal had come due, and I was the one collecting. Next step was the office. I wanted to sit in his chair. I wanted to see his face when security escorted him out of the building. I told the driver to change course. Take me to Reynolds Tech Tower, I said. You got it, lady. I checked my makeup in the compact mirror. I looked different. Stronger. The mouse was gone. The lion had arrived. And she was hungry. The cab pulled up to the curb in front of the Reynolds Tech Tower. It was a glass monstrosity that Mark had insisted on leasing even though the company could barely afford the rent. He liked the image of success more than actual success. I paid the driver and stepped onto the sidewalk. The wind whipped my hair back, but I didn't care. I felt like a warrior stepping onto the battlefield. I walked through the revolving doors. The lobby was cool and smelled like lemon polish. The receptionist was a girl named Chloe. She was busy typing on her phone and didn't look up until I cleared my throat. "Can I help you?" she asked in that bored tone she usually reserved for delivery guys. Then she saw it was me. Her eyes went wide. "Oh, hi, Mrs. Reynolds. Is Mark expecting you?" I smiled. It was a sharp smile. "No, Chloe," I said. "But I am expecting him." "Is he upstairs?" "Yeah, he just ran in like 5 minutes ago," she said. "He looked kinda crazy. He told me to hold all his calls." "Thanks, Chloe," I said, walking toward the elevators. "Oh, and Chloe." She looked up. "Start polishing your resume," I said. "There are gonna be some changes around here." I stepped into the elevator and hit the button for the top floor. My stomach did a little flip, but it wasn't nerves. It was adrenaline. I watched the numbers tick up. Floor 10. Floor 20. Floor 30. The doors opened directly into the executive suite. The office was chaotic. People were running around with papers. Phones were ringing off the hook. The news had broken. The stock price surge had triggered alerts everywhere. They knew something was happening, but they didn't know what. I walked past the open cubicles. Heads turned. Whispers started. "Is that his wife? I heard she bought the place. No way, she looks so quiet." I ignored them. I walked straight to the double glass doors at the end of the hall. Mark's office. I didn't knock. I pushed the doors open and walked in. Mark was there. He was frantically shoving documents into a shredder. His suit jacket was on the floor. He was sweating through his dress shirt. Jessica was there too, standing by the window biting her nails. Mark looked up. The color drained from his face. "You," he hissed. "You actually came here." I walked over to the leather chair behind his desk. His chair. I ran my hand along the back of it. "Get away from there," Mark shouted, moving toward me. "That is my desk. This is my office. Security. Get security up here now." I laughed. It was a dry sound. I already called them Mark. But they aren't coming for me. 2 large men in uniforms walked through the door behind me. One was the head of building security, a guy named Frank. Mark had treated Frank like garbage for years, never learning his name, always complaining about the sign and procedure. "Frank," I said, nodding to him. "Please escort Mr. Reynolds out of the building." Frank smiled. It was a genuine smile. "You got it, Miss Sarah." Mark backed up, hitting the edge of the desk. "You can't do this," he stammered. "I am the CEO. I have rights. You can't just walk in here and take over." I pulled the court order out of my purse and slammed it on the desk. It made a loud thud that echoed in the room. "Read it, Mark," I said. "Says I own 51%. It says I have the controlling interest. And as of 10 minutes ago I fired you." Mark looked at the paper, then he looked at me. His eyes were desperate. "Sarah, please. Let's talk about this. We can work something out. I can run the company for you. You don't know how to run a tech firm. You are just a housewife. You will crash this whole thing in a week." I walked around the desk and sat in the chair. I spun it around to face him. "I was an accountant, Mark," I said. "I know how to read a balance sheet. I know that you have been bleeding this company dry to pay for your dinners and your trips and your girlfriend over there." I pointed at Jessica. She flinched. "I am going to audit every single penny you spent," I said. "And if I find any more fraud, I am going to the district attorney. You won't just be unemployed, Mark. You will be in prison." Mark looked like he was going to vomit. Frank grabbed Mark's arm. "Let's go, Mr. Reynolds. Time to leave." Mark tried to shake him off. "Get your hands off me," he shouted. "I need my things. I need my laptop." "Company property," I said. "Leave it." He grabbed a picture frame from the desk. It was a photo of him shaking hands with some minor celebrity. "Personal property," I said. "You can take that." Frank and the other guard dragged him toward the door. Mark was kicking and screaming like a toddler. "You will regret this, Sarah," he screamed. "You will come crawling back to me. You are nothing without me." The doors closed and his voice was cut off. Silence fell over the room. I took a deep breath. It smelled like expensive leather and stale ambition. I turned my chair to face Jessica. She was still standing by the window shaking. I suppose you want me to leave too, she whispered. I looked at her. Really looked at her. She was young. Naive. She thought she had landed a rich guy. She didn't know she had landed a con artist. Sit down, Jessica, I said. She looked surprised. She sat on the edge of the guest chair. Did you know he was stealing from me, I asked. She shook her head rapidly. No. I swear. He told me he was rich. He told me the company was making millions. He said you were. She stopped. He said I was what I asked, leaning forward. He said you were crazy, she said quietly. He said you were depressed and checked out. He said he was only staying with you out of pity. I nodded. Standard cheater script. Jessica, I said. You are a terrible assistant. I have seen your typing. It is full of typos. And you are late every day. She looked down at her lap. But I said, you know where the bodies are buried. You know his passwords. You know who he was meeting with off the books. She looked up. I am not going to fire you today, I said. I am going to keep you on for 1 week. During that week you are going to help me find every single dollar he hid. You are going to help me untangle this mess. She nodded eagerly. I will. I will do anything. And after that week is up, I said, you are fired. And you will never work in this industry again. Her face fell. But I continued. If you help me find the money, I won't press charges against you for aiding and abetting his embezzlement. Because make no mistake, Jessica, you sign the checks too. She went pale. Okay, she whispered. Thank you. Now get out, I said. Go to your desk and start printing the bank statements. She ran out of the room. I was finally alone. I spun the chair around and looked out the window. The city looked different from up here. It looked smaller. Manageable. My phone buzzed. It was Dave, my broker. Sarah, he said. You are not going to believe this. The news of the hostile takeover is everywhere. People love the story. The scorned wife taking charge. The stock is up another 10%. You are making money hand over fist. That is good, Dave, I said. Keep buying. I want to own as much as I can. I hung up. I opened Mark's laptop. His password was his own birthday. Predictable. I started digging. It was worse than I thought. He hadn't just stolen my jewelry. He had taken out loans in my name. He had drained our joint retirement account. He had maxed out credit cards I didn't even know existed. The anger flared up again, hot and bright. But I pushed it down. Getting mad wouldn't fix the balance sheet. Getting even was already done. Now I had to get smart. I spent the next 6 hours working. I called the creditors. I called the bank. I set up meetings with the department heads. I told them the party was over. No more expense lunches. No more first-class travel. We were going lean. By the time I left the office, it was dark. I took a cab back to the house. The house was dark. Mark wasn't there. He had probably gone to a hotel or to a friend's couch. I didn't care. I walked inside and turned on the lights. It felt different. It felt like my house again. I went to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of wine. Then I heard a key turn in the lock. My stomach tightened. I had forgotten to change the locks. The door flew open. Mark stumbled in. He was drunk. His shirt was untucked and he looked like a wild animal. You think you won, he slurred, pointing a finger at me. You think you are so smart. Get out, Mark, I said, putting the wine glass down. You are trespassing. This is my house, he shouted. My name is on the deed. Not anymore, I said. The judge gave me temporary exclusive possession pending the final decree. If you are not gone in 30 seconds, I am calling the cops. Again. He laughed. A bitter, ugly sound. Go ahead, call them. I don't care. I have nothing left to lose. You took my job. You took my company. You took my girl. Yeah, Jessica dumped me about an hour ago. Said I was a loser. He walked toward me, swaying. I gave you everything, Sarah, he said. I gave you a life. And this is how you repay me. By stabbing me in the back. I stood my ground. I didn't flinch. You didn't give me a life, Mark, I said. You stole mine. You made me small so you could feel big. You took my voice. You took my confidence. And then you took my grandmother's gold. I stepped closer to him. That gold wasn't just metal, Mark. It was survival. It was generations of women surviving men like you. And you sold it for a diamond ring and a cheap thrill. He looked at me, and for the first time I saw real fear in his eyes. He realized I wasn't the mouse anymore. "I'm going to make you a deal, Mark," I said. He blinked. "What kind of deal?" "You leave tonight," I said. "You walk out that door and you never come back. You sign the divorce papers exactly as I wrote them. You don't fight me on the house. You don't fight me on the assets." "And what do I get?" he asked. I pulled a small velvet bag out of my pocket. I had stopped at the pawn shop on the way home. It wasn't the original jewelry. That was gone forever, melted down or sold to strangers. But this was something else. I tossed the bag to him. He caught it. Inside was his wedding ring, the one he had stopped wearing, and his grandfather's watch that he had left in the safe. "You get to keep your dignity," I said. "Or what is left of it. If you fight me, Mark, I will release the audit findings to the press. Everyone will know you are a thief. You will never get a job again. You will be a pariah." He looked at the bag in his hand. He looked at me. He knew I wasn't bluffing. He didn't say a word. He just turned around and walked out the door. I waited until I heard his car start up and drive away. Then I went to the door and locked it. I slid the deadbolt home. It was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. 6 months later, I sat in the boardroom at the head of the table. The view was spectacular. The sun was shining on the city. "Okay, people," I said, looking at the quarterly report. "Numbers are looking good. Revenue is up 30%. We paid off the last of the high-interest debt yesterday." The board members nodded. They respected me now. Not because I was scary, but because I was right. I had turned the sinking ship around. I had fired the dead weight and promoted the talent that Mark had ignored. I dismissed the meeting and went back to my office. My assistant walked in. It wasn't Jessica. It was a young guy named Leo who was sharp and organized and actually knew how to use a spreadsheet. "Sarah, there is a letter for you," Leo said. "It has no return address." I took the envelope. I knew the handwriting. I opened it. There was no letter inside. Just a check. It was for $50,000. I looked at the postmark. It was from a small town in Ohio. Mark was working somewhere, probably in sales, starting over. He was paying me back. I looked at the check for a long time. It was exactly the amount he had stolen for the jewelry. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel sad. I just felt closure. I picked up my phone and called my broker. "Dave," I said, "I have a check here for 50 grand. Invest it?" Dave asked. "No," I said. "I want you to open a trust fund." "For who?" "For a women's shelter," I said. "Call it the Gold Fund. It is for women who need to leave bad situations and need a safety net." I hung up the phone. I walked to the safe in my office. I opened it. Inside was a new box. I opened the lid. Inside was a simple gold chain. I had bought it with my first dividend check from the company. It wasn't an antique. Didn't have history. But it was mine. I had earned it. I put the chain around my neck and clasped it. The cold metal felt good against my skin. My grandmother was right. A woman must always have her own gold. But she forgot to tell me the most important part. The gold isn't the jewelry. The gold is the spine of steel you build when you have to save yourself. I looked at my reflection in the window. I fixed my blazer. I had a meeting with investors in 10 minutes. I was Sarah Reynolds, majority shareholder. And I was just getting started.